Welcome back. Man, this is not the video I was definitely hoping to make on the day after Talking Duck Sports, but man, Ohio State came in, and I'm gonna get this out of the way now because I'm gonna talk some critical stuff here in a minute. But Ohio State played exceptionally well. Ohio State executed exceptionally well. Will Howard was on the money when he was throwing, and they made great plays that counted, and then their defense, played exceptionally well also, and so let's get that out of the way. Now come the excuse part. Now, don't get me wrong, none of these excuses outweigh Ohio State's performance in this win, because Ohio State beat the pants off Oregon, and there's no other way to say it, right? It's not Oregon shot themselves in the foot. It's not Oregon did this. The outcome of this game was purely decided by Ohio State just being more physical, executing exceptionally well, and getting the job done. That is the bottom line in the story. Now, let's talk about some things here. Why was that the case? Why was Ohio State so much sharper than what Oregon was? Because in the end, I don't think necessarily Ohio State's that much better of a team than Oregon, but they certainly played to the alternative of that statement yesterday. So what were some of these factors? I think one of the biggest factors is you can't take a month off playing football and then come back and expect to execute like you were. There's a reason teams are very different at mid-year and end of year than they are at the beginning of the year. And because when you're playing games week in and week out, there's a different kind of method that happens. There's a different kind of intensity, and those things you just can't practice for. There is no substitute for playing an actual game. Now, what do you have so far? Because the other game was postponed to the stuff that happened, and that's sorry to hear, but we're not here to talk about that. But you have Georgia and Notre Dame playing today, and if somehow Notre Dame beats Georgia, then all four teams that had a month off will have lost. Right now, those teams are 0-3. All three of the top three seeds are 0-3. And you have the teams that played and won winning. And that's kind of the aspect. I hear a lot of coaches and a lot of people say that even a bye week is almost too long, that any longer than that bye week and teams get rusty. And sometimes even that bye week teams get a little rusty. And there's just no substitute for actually playing a game. So we'll get to that in a minute. But so that's one big factor, I think. I think that's probably the biggest factor of the difference in that game. Now, even if Oregon had not had a week off and had come out sharp, I thought Ohio State's game plan was very, very, very efficient against Oregon. Enough to where Oregon, ends up with negative 23 rushing yards. I think that's probably a record against Oregon. I can't think of another game, even some of the 0-0 toilet bowls from Oregon State, where Oregon rushed for, negative yardage, or even less than 100 yards rushing. I don't know if there was a time that Oregon's rushed for for under 100 yards rushing, much less negative rushing yards. Now, a lot of those rushing yards, the reason it's negative is because Ohio State had 8 sacks against an Oregon team that had pretty much not given up sacks after the first few games. 8 sacks is abysmal. And again, Oregon did not show up and execute like they had been executing all year long. Credit to Ohio State. Ohio State's game plan. They used things against Oregon that Oregon had done pretty well. Oregon didn't play up to the Oregon standard. Dan Lanning has taken the credit for that. But again, that's I'm not sure where the blame totally lies, because at some point that's got to be on the players playing the game. But Oregon just looked slow. The timing looked off by Dylan Gabriel's passes. A lot of time he was behind the play. And on top of that, I thought Dylan forced a lot of stuff in the first half that there was no interceptions, but there probably should have been 2 or 3 interceptions that Ohio State should have came away with. And yeah, I mean, if we look at some of these team stats, 20 first downs to 15, 4 of 11 third down efficiency to 8 and 9, 0 for fourth and 2 for 3 rushing yards. This is the stat that happens. The team that wins the rushing yards wins the game. This is completely true here. Oregon with no rushing yards was incapable of winning this game. There just was no way for them to win with negative rushing yards. That's just not going to happen. Ohio State has 319 passing yards. I thought Will Howard played an exceptional game. He had some punts here, penalty yards. I mean, for the penalty, it was a fairly cleanly called game. I didn't see a lot of missed calls by the referees or any of that, but there was really no need to call any of those, even if there was but I thought it was a cleanly officiated game by the ACC referees. But yeah, I mean, there's just not much else to say about this game other than Chip Kelly finally gets a win against Oregon. That is Chip Kelly's first win against Oregon. He couldn't do it as a head coach, but he could do it with other people's players as an offensive coordinator. Credit to their offensive game plan. Credit to Chip Kelly that he finally found a way to exploit Oregon's weaknesses. And then I thought Oregon looked rusty. Those two combinations just made for this blowout game. Oregon just gets dominated. There's not much else to say about that. Now, what we will say about the rest of this is this is Dan Lanning's his second year, I think, right? I think that's right. And it's not just, it's either his second or third year. I'm pretty sure it's his second year. But the other aspect of this is he's not only is it only his second year at Oregon, but it's his second year as a head coach. And you know what? I take that back. This is his third year. Is that right? Man, I can't think. Yeah, this is his third year. And, okay. So he's still young. This is his first playoff experience. And this is something that apparently that he's going to have to learn. I don't know anything about how you keep players fresh for a month without playing. I don't see that really being apparently it's not good for anybody so far, because we're 0-3 right now, the teams that were seeded and had the bye. So something's going to have to change with that, because that's apparently not a great factor. You're going to have teams, submarining games at the end of the year to get a better seed, which would be to play early. That seems odd, but a lot of people are saying that Oregon should have purposely lost to Penn State to get that better seed, and then they would still be in the playoff. For me, I don't know. I can't see it that way. For me, Oregon went 13-0 in the regular season. Oregon is the Big Ten champion, and nobody can take that away from Oregon, and nobody can say that they bested Oregon in the regular season. Did you do it in the playoff? Okay, sure. But you haven't won anything yet. You still have 3 more games, and if you don't win the championship, then you didn't win anything at all, right? So I don't mind the fact that in Dan Lanning's 3rd season, they got to the playoff. Dan Lanning had a chance, and the Oregon Duck had a chance, but they just didn't execute like they needed to execute, and Ohio State either outplayed and outcoached Oregon, or at least outplayed Oregon, but the rest of that is probably debatable. But nobody can take away a very successful season for Oregon. They go 13-0 in the regular season, and they win the Big Ten title. They beat Ohio State, they beat Penn State, and they beat Michigan, which are the 3 true bloods of the Big Ten, right? And so Oregon cements its place in history as the newcomers, and they won that title outgoing. So you got to give them credit for that. And then we'll see what happens in the future, because Oregon's going to have to learn how to play when they have time off. Now, what is the playoffs going to do? Because I think this is a detrimental aspect, and that's just too much time off. I have a couple recommendations. My first recommendation is that there is no time off, right? Is right after the conference title game, the playoffs start. And if you're a team that doesn't win its conference title and you're still in the playoffs, I'm sorry, you probably have a home game, but you got to play right away. Those other 4 seeds, if they still want to do that, get 1 week off as a bye week, and then they play. They play the winner of those lower tier games. Now, the second part of this is, after there's no time off and the playoffs just start, is after those first set of teams play, they need to be reseeded. And how would you do that? You have the first 4 seeds with the bye, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's easy. The next teams, 5 through 12, whoever wins and the highest seed plays the lowest seed, right? So you have one playing the highest number seed, whoever that would be after the win, and then the number 5 seed plays the number 4 seed. I think that evens things up. Because you have the 12 teams, it's not even. I would prefer that they go straight and just expand it all the way and everybody plays. There's no time off, no bye week. They just add what? You need 4 more teams, and then everybody plays a true playoff. I don't see a problem with that. In fact, I think that's probably the preferred method, is then you can have your bye week, right? And so the other option is to add 4 more teams. Everybody has a week off. You start the playoffs, and everybody just plays through. You have another bye week before the national title game, and then it ends about the same time with same timing and stuff. But who knows what they're going to do? I guarantee there's going to be some changes, especially with 3 of the 4 losing. I don't think that's a good look for the committee that put those 4 teams in there. But in the end of this is you have to give those teams credit that have won. They played, they won. I do think the only black mark on that is the Texas-Arizona State game. That, I think, was clearly targeting. I think that will come out later. I think the league will say that they screwed up. That was a horrible call. I've already seen a lot of articles calling that one of the worst calls they've seen. I'm not sure what the deal was with that, but that would have given Arizona State a first down and changed the complexity of that game. But with that, we're out of here for now. There's a basketball game on tonight, so we're going to watch that. But for now, sun sets on Oregon's football season with a crushing loss to Ohio State. But they are and will be forever the 2023-24 Big Ten champions. Or no, the 2024-2025 Big Ten champions. With that, we're out. Happy New Year. Much love all.